Come on. Yes, we are live.
Hey,
hello, everyone. Back again. Today, I am with Heather and Bridget from the K9 and Feline Naturals. We talk a lot about dogs here, but their product is equally important for cats. They are our partners for the summit, both of which are going to be at the summit with us. So we're very excited about that. And we are going to talk more about their product, the importance of organs, those kind of questions today. Any questions you have, put them in the comments and we will answer those. But I'm going to start off with letting Heather and Bridget introduce themselves and what their role is in their company. And we're going to go from there.
All right. Well, I'll start. I'm Heather Inejibi. I am Strategic Account Manager and Brand Ambassador. I've been with the company for over 9 years. So started just as a sales rep in the West Coast, and I just fell in love with this whole company and everything. So anyway, that's me. Hi.
Awesome. And I'm Bridget Jennings. I'm out in the good old Midwest as one of the regional sales managers, and I'm actually newer to the company, and it has just been a genuinely thrilling experience to be part of such a company with such a legacy, such a history, and just the sourcing, which we're going to go over later today. I cannot wait to talk about.
Yeah. And Bridget gets to go to New Zealand in April, her first trip. So she'll get to see the farms.
Mind blown.
Yeah, farms herself, which I've been, and it's life-changing to see.
Oh yeah, I've not been there yet. That's definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah.
And the more I talk to you guys about it, the more I want to go. That's so exciting. Well, we're going to start off with a few questions that we have, and then they can seg into other questions as people come on. But I wanted to start off by why rotating meats is so beneficial to our pets. You know, veterinarians have told us for decades that keep your pet on the same kibble, otherwise they're going to have GI upset. That's not really true. So let's talk about rotating.
Absolutely. And think about wolves in the wild. First of all, they go days without eating between meals, and they eat different things every single day. So protein rotation is hyper exciting and one of the most ethically things you can do for your pet. So protein rotation, kind of the basics behind it, it's going to reduce food allergies and intolerances. I have worked in stores for years, and every once in a while I would get a customer come in and they'd be like, you know, Bosco came in and he has diarrhea and he's vomiting, and we've been on this food for the past 5 years or his whole life, and Bosco's probably allergic now because we've never rotated those proteins out. We've never picked treats with actual meat content in them. So it's really going to help reduce those food allergies and intolerances currently and in the future for them. It's also going to improve digestion and build a tougher immune system. And that's because if you think about beef and then chicken and lamb and all the different characteristics they all have different vitamins and different minerals. And when you create a carnivore-based diet, when you have that muscle meat, you always satiate it with different organs. So those different organs are going to have different benefits for the dog. So rotating it out can be really, really important for their immune system. It's also going to create a nutrient balance because of that. And then, of course, the biggest thing, who wants to eat the same thing every day? No one does. And if you think about it, throwing us in the rotation is you're getting a product that's 100% from the meat content to the veggies from New Zealand. So it's going to be grass-fed, grass-finished. That's also going to have a different dynamic for that dog, even if you just hedge us in like 20% of the diet. So those are kind of what I would say are the overall just basics of protein rotation. But going a little bit deeper is that, I love studying food energetics. And I think food energetics is so fun. And I know a lot of people talk about it. So I thought we would talk about it almost in a different way. Instead of talking about heating and cooling proteins in that sense, talk about what proteins actually help with what ailments. And food energetics obviously plays a little bit in that. So for instance, if you look at all of our feasts that we have, they all offer super powerful solutions, because I love solution-based selling, because that's what we're here to help the pet parent. Every single dog and cat typically has 1, 2 ailments, and that's what we want to provide a solution for. So for instance, every single formula we have is going to be great for dental support because it's low in carbohydrate, less things to attach to the teeth, less likely a chance of getting periodontal disease. All of our formulas are going to help with hip and joint because we have the green muscle in every single one of the formulas. But other things that I see more commonly now, one of them is weight loss. Most of our dogs and cats are a little fluffy. And my cat should be able to jump on here and annoy me during every single Zoom meeting. That's what I look forward to, right? So weight loss is huge. And it's huge in my family too, because I have a Basset Hound mix and that girl's metabolism. She's a thick Midwest girl just like me. So I have to work on that body shape for her. So weight loss is really important. So recommendation wise, 2 formulas I'd love to talk about are chicken and Hoki. And we're going to deep dive a little bit into Hoki a little bit later. But chicken, super high in protein, really, really low in fat. So that is a great option for dogs that maybe are a little more chunky or cats a little more chunky than they need to be. But we know chicken, it is an allergy to a lot of dogs and cats. So Hoki is a whitefish. And when you look at any type of whitefish, it's going to be super lean. So that's going to be a really, really great protein for weight loss. And then, oh, good.
I was going to say, what about with Hoki? What is the content of omega-3 in Hoki versus some of the other like small fatty fish? Do you know? Because we recommend those small fatty fish to everyone for omega-3 balancing, omega-6, omega-3. And I'm not familiar with Hoki as far as that goes.
I don't have that information offhand unless Bridget's looking for it now. But if not, I'm going to enter it into the comments after. So we can get that information for you. I've just never been asked that specifically. And our Hoki, the Hoki that we use, we're blending it with beef. So it's not broken out on our guaranteed analysis. So I'll need to dig a little deeper. But
yeah, I was just curious.
I'm talking about Hoki. I just kind of want to show you guys.
That is so cool. I love it.
We got this made. This is a life-size recreation of what a Hoki looks like.
So cool.
You'll have to bring that to Summit for your table.
I'm going to. I named her Holly. She comes with me everywhere now.
Oh, I love Holly. Yes.
Our emotional support Hoki.
There you go. I love her. That'll be a great conversation starter.
Yeah, no, it is. And nobody knows what Hoki are in America because why would you? It's not a fish that's available to us. It's not something that's here. But it is just a beautiful flaky white fish. But what's so important is it's low in mercury. It's MSC certified.
Nice.
It's, seafoodwatch.org, best choice. All of our seafood is. But Hoki, I think it's my favorite formula that we do is beef and Hoki. And that's what I'm currently using on my very, very unhealthy foster that we're turning our health around because it's my favorite.
You told me.
Yeah. So like Bridget was talking about, her two favorite formulas, chicken and the Hoki and beef. And we add we like to do the blends because you can get more amino acids or vitamin, for blending. Plus it holds together better. It's tough to get fish to hold together.
Exactly. Yeah. My biggest challenge is my doodle Blossom here. She has a chronic left ear infection. It's always her left. And I just cannot get it to stay healthy. Driving is like my nemesis with her. Everything else is perfect with her, but this left ear. So I'll have to get your take on that.
Yeah.
When you're saying specific solutions with diets.
I've tried
so many things. So let me know what you think.
And sometimes it is hard. So Milkshake, she was the dog I was talking about. So Milkshake's a little bit different. Milkshake was born without eyes and they found her dumped in a graveyard. She's truly a special needs dog that we've alleviated her seizures by regulating that weight that she has. So her seizure medicine works. So I don't have to switch to something with more deficits. But she has a chronic ear infection. Actually, we just got her surgery the other day because she ended up getting a hematoma because of one of them. And it's something I struggle with. So what I try to do is when I throw Hoki in there, Hoki is just like cod. A lot of people are familiar with cod. It is anti-inflammatory cooling protein. So I love to chime that in. But sometimes I always like to be honest, it takes more than a diet. It takes different things. And we can go offline and we can nerd out about some other stuff.
That's great.
In lieu of a diet. But So that's kind of what I talk about with weight loss. And then I also wanted to go into another category I love, my high energy pets.
Mm.
So I think no one really talks about that. So I live in the Midwest, and in the Midwest, we have a lot of working dogs, right? We have a lot of our border collies, our shepherds, or it's just fun to give a dog a job. Dogs love having jobs.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It helps just cognitive, the bonding with them. So high energy pets, I really like to transition those two dogs between beef and lamb. They're super high in protein and fat. So any of our red meats are going to have way more calories than like our poultry. That's why poultry is more of our weight loss, and our white fish is more of our weight loss. So when we have the red meat, they're going to be so high in protein and fat, but not too high. We do level set everything to make sure it's a full keto diet. So we actually balance those out, which is really, really nice. And just a fun fact, I'd love to go on a tangent and kind of go off script if that's okay. So dogs and cats, we all know they're not meant to have a carbohydrate. If I don't have a carbohydrate, I'm an absolute nightmare. If Milkshake doesn't have a carbohydrate, she's going to be way happier, right? So even though she's always trying to sneak stuff off my food, but she will be happier in the long run.
Right.
So the good thing for us is a lot of times when people think of keto, they automatically are like, oh, it's a low carb diet. That's trickery. It's actually not just a low carb diet. You have to have the correct balance of protein and fat ratios, because what happens if you have a chicken, let's just say, super lean meat, you actually have to have a lot of muscle meat and kind of a little bit of organs, maybe like an 80-10 kind of split on that. And then your red meat, you kind of need like a 60-40 ratio, because it's so fatty. If you have too much muscle meat, the fat actually isn't used as energy, and it can turn to fat unless you have dogs that are super, super hyperactive. But what we do is we go ahead and we alleviate all that stress, and we do studies with Mass University who help formulate our diets, and we actually make sure everything is keto. So low carb, every single dog formula is 3.6 or less carbs. Every cat formula, less than 1% carb, which is insanely rare, because I see diets all the time that are 10 to 15% carnivore diets for cats. Less than 1%, and that's our freeze-dried and our canned food. So we try to alleviate all the stress and do everything we can do so a dog and cat can truly hit ketosis, and we do it the right way by level setting those. So I love keto diets and high energy pets, because we also make sure it's not just a whole bunch of fat that they can use for energy. It's fat for good energy.
Yeah. That's great. That low carb, for dogs, but especially cats. I look at carnivores; they're not supposed to eat these carbs. So
Costco even acknowledges they don't need carbs. So
absolutely. I think that's one thing that all of us across the board, nutritionists, the board certified veterinary nutritionists will actually say dogs and cats do not have a carb requirement. And that's why it's not required to be on the bag, right? The analysis, because it's not a requirement. But then why are you putting 40% carbs, 60%
I wanted
carbs?
on the guaranteed analysis real bad. I think people should know.
And it's a new requirement, I think, starting in the next couple of years, that it's going to have to be.
I heard that.
Yeah. So, but right now it's not, and you have to know how to figure it. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. So,
well, and the calculator that we all use, because there's really not a great calculator, but you and I at the store turning the bag around, it's based on, guaranteed analysis are mins and maxes, so that it can vary wildly. So
exactly,
if a company isn't telling you, like, our bags, it's tough to know. It would look like we have more like 10% carbs based on our bags, but then you go to our website and then we've got that full typical analysis breakdown where you can see, and we acknowledge the carbs on there. And I think it's not a conversation many people like to have, because it's sort of like, well, with that min max, you can kind of fluctuate a lot in there. I like to I'm excited to have that on the
to be transparent about it, and say what's really in there, and if you have 10%, you can say why you have 10%, because some of those carbs are good. The low glycemic carbs are good for them.
And I know, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but when we talk about synthetics, you do need a lot more plant-based matter to kind of hit those
Mhm.
vitamin and mineral requirements. It's tough to do when we're at 94% meat in our diets. So yeah, it's tough. So there are, certainly some great products out there that have less meat, more veg, but they've done it without add synthetics.
Yes, and so there is that balance that you have to reach. So you brought up synthetics, so let's talk about that a little bit. Because a lot of us
are on our own thing, but it's just I saw a moment, and I just like to I like to hit it head on, because I do know people. There is sort of a blanket concern on companies that have synthetics, and Bridget, one day I happened to be standing by her while she was talking to a store owner, and I was like, so throwing it to you, Bridget, because you've got a great way.
Yeah, there's a couple reasons why I think it's really great to hedge in some synthetics in food, because if you're making your food at home, that's one thing, but when you're processing and grinding and then it goes into a bag on a shelf, which all of us are doing as a brand, it is a little bit different. So just some things about us. So we only hedge in less than 0.5% of that entire bag is a synthetic. Any vitamins and minerals that we use are all chelated, which means they're going to be bound to an amino acid, so they absorb a little bit easier and they're more bioavailable. So here's how I kind of like to describe it is, first of all of our meats and veggies are sourced from New Zealand, which of course has the highest standard in the entire world. But nature still exists there, and nature is going to have its own rhythm, and it's going to create different climates all throughout the year. So it's going to make some of the crops get a certain boost in certain vitamins, other days, soil, wind, acidity, all that stuff is going to impact that vegetable. And then that vegetable, or excuse me, those crops also impact the animals eating it. We're grass-fed, finished animals. So we want to make sure that we hedge in a safety net in there. And the other thing is, when you get this mixture, you grind it up, you put this amalgamation of a creature in a bag, right? And over time, those nutrients that are natural, they're going to degrade. So meats, organs, and veggies are going to start losing vitamins like A, B complex, which is huge, C and E during that grind, storage, air, light exposure. And I say this because I'm guilty of it too. So we all know the pet parent, they go buy it. They might not have the proper food storage. So you make the bag, you seal it in nitrogen, right? Like we all seal our bags in nitrogen that keeps the oxygen out of it, or they'll have little oxygen absorbers too. When they open it, oxygen starts entering the bag. And how many times do your pet parents haphazardly, or you're in a rush, you feed them, you got to go, you don't seal it, you don't close the bin that it's in. It's sitting there getting more oxidized. We just want to make sure that from start to finish, so that expiration date, it's going to have every nutrient profile, because in the end, your body is always going to use natural forms first. So the synthetic, it could be rejected out of the body because they've got it from the lung or the liver or whatever it is. We just want to make sure if anything degrades over time via storage, or they keep it on a windowsill or something. I've seen my friends do it. I call them out all the time for silly storage. We just want to make sure that through and through, it's 100%. And then another thing is, there actually are vitamins like folate, which is your vitamin B9. It helps with your nervous system, your cell growth and repair. Huge. We have to have that in our to have that in our diets, right? Even as humans. So synthetic folic acid is actually more stable, and it is more bioavailable and more easily absorbed by dogs and cats than getting it from the roughage in the food, because you, like Heather said, so much roughage in the food. And by chance, if it even survives first grind. So those are some of the reasons that we do that.
Yeah. I think as you can be transparent about why you do it, and, and back what you're saying, like you are, I think there's a place for it. And like you said, with those of us that are, DIYers,
for sure,
it's a totally different thing. We're not, those meals are frozen until they're coming out to thaw, and they're not going to lose those nutrients. Minimal processing. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then to tack onto that, like Bridget had mentioned about grass-fed, grass-finished, it's also rotational grazing in New Zealand. So
Okay.
sometimes they're eating kale, sometimes they're eating Brussels sprouts, and you know, and so that's also changing things. And then also seasonality, and then also I personally don't eat complete and balanced every day. Probably most people
Absolutely.
don't, and necessarily, I don't hold tight to the thing that my dog has to eat complete and balanced every day. But us being an imported product out of New Zealand, we're also checked quite often for complete and balanced. Nothing against New Zealand. I think it's just a really nice bottleneck to get a lot of. So we get tested quite frequently when it lands in the US for complete and balanced. Like I say, personally, I don't worry about that in my own life. And I wouldn't necessarily worry about it in my own pet's life. But we certainly as a company don't want to get dinged for being a under on something because it was winter in New Zealand when this was harvested, or summer, or you know. So you know, there are all these opinions out there that I think are very valid. Like I say, I don't believe in complete and balanced every day. I think we all kind of work it out at the end.
Right.
But it is something that people can also take comfort in with us, is that we are complete and balanced every bag, every time. Because we have to be. And also we're not buying vitamin packs. You know, we're sourcing them individually, mixing them. Nothing from China ever. They do come from other countries, but nothing from China ever. So it's very, because I think that's the concern people have, is that you've trusted somebody else's vitamin pack.
Yes. And that's where they've had some dog food recalls because of that.
I understand. So, like I would be devastated, of course.
Yeah.
My door just opened on me. So anyway, people, oh, hi Dad, I'm in an interview.
Come on.
Bridget, take over.
There you go.
Well, that's really what I had for vitamins and minerals. And I think that covered it really, really well.
It did. I feel a lot more educated with that, especially when you're saying, you know, seasonality. And that's one of the things I have a problem with spreadsheets, is because where you're pulling that information to create your spreadsheet for a DIYer, how do they know that the chicken that's on that list is anything near the chicken that I raised in Middle Tennessee on our grass? You know, it's like, there's no way to qualify that.
No. And
so
the testing is all very expensive. You know, we have to do it as a commercial company, and especially as a New Zealand company, but for DIYers, I totally understand. But that goes back to the beauty of rotation. If you're a DIY and you're switching it up, yeah, you might be low on selenium over here, but maybe not over here, or, you know.
Yeah, you just keep changing it up.
Yeah, that is the beauty of, you know, true DIY, and that the people that are doing the work, you know, we're providing a really, really high quality option that's convenient. You know, okay, I'd sent you some samples to try, and you're like, for traveling, it's for traveling. It's really hard to pack that cooler full of frozen meats and then defrost.
Yes, it is.
So I know.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's hard to keep everything clean, and you know, you're going in and out of places where people don't understand what you're doing, and so to have a bag like yours that it looks normal, then I'm not changing the integrity of her meals at all. I feel like I'm still giving her the highest quality, but I'm not having to deal with all the questions and comments and worries. And
you know, not everybody has the time and the passion, you know, and the knowledge to make their own. And it's complicated. I have done it. That's kind of how I got into this industry. I had a dog that I couldn't figure her out. So I ended up DIYing her raw because I just couldn't figure it out. And it was so complicated. And as much as I loved, even, you know, K9 Natural used to have frozen raw in the United States, loved it. But man, I don't miss having a fridge back that's mine now for my veggies. And you know, where it used to be the meat defrosting drawer.
That is exactly what mine is. Exactly.
You know, I love having my whole fridge back.
Yeah. Well, you know, when my first purchase, when I bought my house, was a freezer for the dog.
Yep.
You know, like I had it before I had the dog.
You already knew. You knew.
I knew, and I knew I was going to buy in bulk. And that freezer in my garage has very little human food in it. Well, it's all human grade, but that's her food.
Let's talk about human grade based on a post you guys just did, which I loved, because I think human grade is it's a tough designation, a marketing term. All of our food does come from the human grade supply chain, but we have green tripe, and in order for the green means it has not been bleached and scalded. It is not, it's not fit for human consumption, but doesn't mean that animal didn't come from the exact same supply chain that the human grade meats did, because all of our food does come from the human grade supply chain. But we do get people like, well, why doesn't it say it on the bag? And it's like, well, because of our organs. And so I love that you guys just called that out 2 hours ago on your website or on Facebook.
Well, and I love when, people will be like, human grade. Look at what is human grade out there. I wouldn't feed.
Twinkie is human grade.
I'm not feeding Doritos to my dog, and those are considered human grade. So, and we use a lot of parts that wouldn't be considered human grade. They come out of the human, the food chain. You're right.
The food chain, yeah.
But that doesn't mean humans are going to eat ears and whatever else. So I love that.
And I wish there was a better designation on bags for that. And it's unfortunate that the legal term, so much of legal terms and the truth don't always match up, which is frustrating. I get
I think we talked about this on the last one, but just that whole grass fed, that can be a cow that was on grass for one day.
Yeah.
It's grass finished, and pasture raised that make the difference. And so that's where people need to investigate the companies, and a company like yours that is so transparent as to everything makes such a difference.
Yeah.
So.
Like I always say, you may not like all of our answers, but I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Like the synthetics, I can't get away from it. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Exactly. We're not trying to hide it, Yeah.
No. And then, when we talk about grass finished or 100% pasture raised, also, this is something that Bridget's really passionate about explaining how often the muscle meat is purchased from New Zealand, but not the organs. So that's a really interesting subject that I think that you can feel really good. I mean, I think that's something else that we have that's different from a lot is our organs are also coming from New Zealand. So I think it really makes it sort of like in our last live, we talked about tripe and how important it is that specific organ was on a grass finished animal, because tripe, and it was on a feedlot full of GMO feed, antibiotics, probiotics. You don't want that tripe.
Right.
But Bridget can go so much deeper into other organs and why it really matters there too.
Okay, Bridget, we just opened it up to you. Let's talk organs.
No, I think organ meat, it truly is the balance to like protein and fat, and they're so important, but they're important with what animal, kind of like how I just mentioned with the keto. So whatever satiates that protein, that's how they're important. So just as a quick refresher for everyone, grass-fed, grass-finished, and just to chime into what Heather said, I ran stores for years, and I remember I had amazing reps, and everyone would be so proud and tout New Zealand, New Zealand, New Zealand, and that's actually how I got to learn more about New Zealand. So I'm really thankful for them. But when I started researching more, I started asking my rep, "Do you use the whole animal?" And that's where the conversation sometimes ended. And I say that because it's so rare you see organ meat come from New Zealand. And if that's the most nutrient dense part of the animal, and we're getting a lot of the bioavailable vitamins, minerals, so we can use less synthetics, that's huge. So grass-fed, grass-finished organ meat, just as a refresher, it's going to be richer in omega-3 fatty acids and your CLAs, higher levels of fat-soluble vitamins, more antioxidants like your vitamin E. It's going to typically be lower in overall fat and saturated fat. And then the nutrient profile is going to vary, of course, with the season. So I like to talk about that as well. Majority of our diets. So chicken is kind of the only exception, kind of how we talked about earlier with it being keto. You need a ton of muscle meat, just a little bit of organ for those guys. So besides our chicken, most of the diets are actually going to be 30 to 40% organ meat, which is a huge chunk of organ meat. So it's going to be packed with nutrients, vitamins, and minerals. It's going to support literally overall body and organ health. I always like to say like with like. There are some studies done where people say if you feed the organ, it helps satiate the organ. So I've heard studies done, and I don't go into a ton of research about this, and feel free to look this up on your own little nerdy time. I love doing stuff. I go on tangents on Google, like, what is this? What is this? So that's how I learn a lot of things. But a lot of studies were done. Like if your cat or dog has asthma, we'll feed lung. Is it gonna get rid of asthma? No. But will it give him a sword in the battle? Sure. Why not?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It has the vitamins and minerals. So organs are also super easy to digest for pets. Skin and coat health. And of course, the grosser it is to us, the healthier it is to them.
That's so funny.
Right? And I always say that too, because that tripe, I'm not going to lie, guys. We're transparent. It has a stink sometimes. It does. But it's a beautiful grossness. Sometimes I'm used to it, so I actually really don't smell it anymore. But sometimes friends will be like, I'm like, yes, but dog, is that picky dog gonna go nuts for it? Yes. And actually, one of my favorite just tricks to do is I actually take it and I chuck it in my backyard, and I make Milkshake go hunt for it, because she's a blind basset hound, and that's what that girl
Wow.
So that is actually how I do exercise with her, because she doesn't want to walk. She doesn't like walks. So just another trick of the trade. But tripe, just to chime in about it, when you talk about the organ meat being like 30 to 40% organ meat, probably around like 15-20% of that, so close to half of that ratio, is going to be tripe, except for chicken, because chicken doesn't have tripe. Right. So for instance, the new formulas, the beef is about 20% of that formula is tripe, which is awesome. It is one of my favorite to suggest for the pickiest eaters, because that tripe content in it. So when we think of tripe, I think of superfoods. But I think a lot of time when society thinks of superfoods, they're thinking they're kale smoothies, right? Because we relate it to human things. Like truly, fruits and vegetables are 100% superfoods. Vegetables specifically is their superfood. That's why we actually add about 3% roughage to our diets, because carrots and broccoli, tons of nutritional value there. But meat content is actually going to be more bioavailable, because dogs typically use 90 to 95% of protein from an animal source. When it comes to vegetables, they usually only use 50 to 70%. So tripe is honestly the ultimate superfood in my personal opinion. And it is a green tripe, so it's unbleached, just like we talked about. And tripe, of course, like with like, it's going to help the tummies. It also is going to help with your coat, because it has omegas in it. It has collagen in it, which also helps with skin and coat and your hips and joints.
Sure.
It's just overall immune support and health and wellness for the dog.
So I have to confess, I have never used raw green tripe. Real Dog Box does air dried, and I use that for her, and that is stinky enough. The co-op that I go to once in a while will have green tripe, and I'm like, oh, I should do, and I just, it's one of those I just haven't. One of these days I'm going to have to get the raw, but I will admit I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I had a 5-pound chub, and I've got a real strong stomach, and I was trying to cut up that tripe, and I gave up. It was cool. So, with ours being freeze dried, I had a retailer once tell me it smelled like a petting zoo, and I took that and ran with it, because I'm like, everybody smiles. They're like, okay,
I can go with.
But petting zoo, I mean, the freeze dried really does, and that's probably true of the air dried that you were talking about. It really makes.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
It is stinky. And we used to have the frozen tripe, and I remember that, but at least it was in our pellets, which made it so much easier to deal with.
Yeah. I haven't done the raw. Same. I don't really like raw organs. Again, Real Dog Box does the air dried, and I've gotten, very spoiled with those. And I gave my dog raw liver, and she's like, what is this? She wouldn't eat it. I had to cube it up really small and hand feed it to her. And I'm like, okay, we're not doing this.
And air dried and freeze drying also make it smell. In those cases, tripe, it does the opposite. It makes it more tolerable. But I do think the freeze drying and the air drying do kind of enhance that.
Enhance those. Yes, I think so too.
More interesting. And I'm really excited. November, December this year, we're coming out with a venison liver treat,
Nice.
and then as well as a beef liver and a lamb liver. But I'm
Uh-huh.
really excited about that venison liver treat.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We're launching that soon, and I'm thrilled about it, because the more venison I think that we can get, I think people are afraid of, maybe they've had too much beef and lamb.
Yeah.
And they don't want to necessarily buy beef and lamb. They're looking for more novel proteins. New Zealand doesn't have a lot of novel proteins available. So we are fairly limited in the proteins that we can use, but venison is one we have access to. So I'm really excited.
So you're saying venison is that deer or elk?
Deer.
Okay. Do you have elk available?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay.
No.
I was thinking that elk was something that we got out of New Zealand.
Yeah, I don't think, not through us.
Yeah.
Ours is deer.
One of yours. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I ever saw an elk in New Zealand, and I don't think I did. But yeah, it's a tiny island, so they are limited, and it's got to be sustainable. Whatever we're doing has to
exactly.
be.
Yeah.
There are rabbits there, brush tail. There's some other, but for us, it has to be something that we feel really comfortable for. Continuous sourcing, not.
Yeah. So that really segs into the question we had for pets with allergies or sensitivities. What role do alternative proteins play in supporting their health?
Yeah. Bridget.
Yeah.
Bridget question.
I think of
I'm leaning on her heavy today.
No, I think of it in the sense of so many dogs are allergic to chicken and beef, because when we started in the pet food industry, that's what we started with.
Yeah.
So in their lineage, it's the same concept as Bosco was eating the same thing for 5 years.
Right.
So making sure we rotate those different options for them is going to be huge. And also, it's just going to have different vitamins and minerals and protein fat ratios that they haven't had before. And that's what they're going to have in the wild. They're going to have different things every single day. Like I said, wolves goes days without eating things.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really going to just help satiate their nutritional profile.
Mm-hmm. So in your case, the most exotic one you're going to have is the venison that you're coming out.
Yeah.
But I think that hoki really adds to it too. So,
for sure.
But is that always paired with beef?
Yeah, for now. Who's to say what we'll do in the future? We are coming out with 2 new flavors of foods this year. We're coming out with a lamb and venison blend and a chicken and king salmon blend. So who's to say what we'll do in the future?
Sure.
I think the problem we have with fish and why they're always tied to another meat is because we don't use any binding agents.
Yes.
So in order to get it to hold together, fish being as oily as it is, it's really hard to without using a binding agent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of which would you prefer?
Right. No, I get that. Yeah, that's a really good explanation for that.
Yeah. The manufacturing makes things. I think a lot of decisions that a lot of manufacturers make they're due to things like that you wouldn't necessarily think about. Like, why did they do that? And I'm sure other companies are the same, where they've had to make certain decisions that don't necessarily make sense to somebody who's willing to make their own. But if you're doing it in manufacturing and you don't want a bag full of crumbs, even though I've always laughed about that, because I'm like, aren't you mashing it up anyway?
Yeah.
People do not like the crumbs.
Well, and the crumbs are great because you just pour them over their,
Right?
I keep all that and pour it on top of her DIY meal, and she gets a little crunchy in there too. And
yeah,
I don't waste anything. It all goes in.
There's good stuff in there.
When you're saying the percentage of organs, I think, my thought is, wow, that's so much. But you're not talking about just secreting organs. You are talking about the tripe and heart and lung and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up a secreting organ, because that is always something you want to do. And when you're picking out a carnivore diet, you're making a raw carnivore diet, you have to have a secreting organ or it will not be balanced. And sometimes if it doesn't have a secreting organ, that means it's overloaded with synthetics to make up for that. So
exactly.
Just to look for on the bag. We use liver, of course. That's probably the most common. It's the powerhouse, right? It's the filter of the body. That's actually why we make just liver treats themselves, because it is just such a good nutritional profile. So I'm so excited to expand more into that. Yeah,
we always recommend, liver and then some other secreting organ at 5% of each. And I think that just getting that variety in again, and with those organs, I love that you have the different types. And that's one thing we always talk to people about. We've got organs in the body that are actually muscle meat. And so, but to add those as muscle meat, like heart, I always add heart into her food. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that so much. So many people don't talk about secreting organs, so I love that you talked about that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is something you guys use. Do you use the gonads, the testes and ovaries in yours?
We don't.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, those are great ones. The brain, I believe, is also considered a secreting organ.
Yes, it is.
So no, we don't use those guys.
That's maybe something you guys need to start looking into because of all these dogs that are young spay neuter that need that support.
That's so fair. I wonder how the consumer would feel about it. That's always the thing, because it's hard to understand. I love that we're doing something like this tripe, because the average consumer doesn't understand that. So if they see that on the bag, that would be a real fun educational session we want to have for understanding.
I can find testes, but I have a real hard time finding ovaries. And so that's something I think would be really interesting to start adding.
Never would have thought of that. That's great. We'll have to write into our own info line and be like, hey, we thought about it. Is, but like Bridget had said, like, how would consumers feel about that?
Right.
Learning about, really in the wild, talking about wolves, how much of the hair they eat.
Yeah.
And that's so good for their digestive tracts. But how would a consumer feel by opening a bag and there's hair all through there? I feel like the bag would be returned real quick, even though.
Yeah, they'd be like, something's wrong with this. And that's funny because in our Real Dog Box meatballs, we put hair in them.
Yeah. And it's amazing.
You can see it. You can see it in there.
But I do think the people that are getting the Real Dog Box are already
absolutely
at a level of education,
that you're 100% right.
And I'm seeing more and more treats now with, like the entire rabbit ear, and I think that's so great because that's appropriate. But we several years ago joked about like, what would the return rate be on our product if we had a bunch of hair in there, even though that would be amazing for your pet.
Exactly. Yes. Education is, I think of how far we've come with the education. So I can see it down the road for you guys.
Why not?
Yeah, those additional secreting organs for all these animals that are spayed and neutered at a young age.
That's so smart. That's so
really
smart.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to dive deeper into that because I came to this industry through pit bull rescue, and with the overpopulation and pit bulls have these large healthy litters. I'm very guilty of spaying them, neutering them too early.
Yeah,
I didn't know better. We all know
right.
Go, but and I think about that a lot. Like I had to do it because of the overpopulation problem, but was there something I could have been doing to support them on the other side? And Bridget, let's nerd about that on our.
I am all about that. I mean, honestly, that's innovation. Like, that's cool.
And what about uterus too?
Interesting.
Because that's going to have some hormones in there too. So these are things to think about, guys.
Yeah.
Because no one else is using them. I don't know. You know what I mean? And maybe when we're in April in New Zealand, when we're at the facility, maybe because I got to see them sort some body parts, and I got real wimpy in that moment, but I sure love it in my pet's food.
Well, Heather, you need to come to Tennessee when we harvest our own chickens. We'll get you over that wimpy. I actually cut them all up and do it ourselves.
And Robin, our supply chain manager, and she lives in Lummi Island in Washington here, and she harvests her own. And I admire it so much because it's like I think we're so far removed from our food chain. And there really is nothing more ethical than the situation that you're talking about, or New Zealand, how they are living this great life until that day, versus factory farming. And
Exactly. And there's so much more control over everything. So That's funny. We've kind of got off topic, but that's okay.
I love it.
I feel like every conversation Bridget and I go, it's like,
You learn the most when you go on a tangent. Like,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
maybe in a year there will be some new treat that you'll be like, aha, that came out about through.
That came out of that live that we had. That funny conversation.
New Zealand oysters.
There you go. There you go. What are some of the environmental or sustainability factors that you consider when selecting these proteins?
Well, that's a really interesting thing, and I probably need to educate myself a little more on the farming. I do know, we are just a few months away from being a certified B Corp, so we are really focused on the sustainability.
Nice.
And I do think not factory farming is a massive thing that we're doing towards eco-friendly. We have chosen to have carnivores in our lives, and raising meat is not traditionally eco-friendly, but we have chosen carnivores. So it's kind of a balance there, but I think New Zealand is so focused on sustainability and being eco-friendly.
Do they do a lot of like the regenerative farms here, the crop rotation, and move the animals around, and
Yes. Yeah. In fact, when I was there, we were visiting a farm and I saw a lamb eating Brussels sprouts. That's why I bring that up.
Oh yeah.
And the farmer let us know, oh yeah, well that's right now, and so they just call it grass finished, or well, actually in New Zealand, they just call it grass fed because that's what that means.
Right.
But I think it's really important for the fields, for the for the soil to rotate, and they do that there.
Yeah. I think it's becoming more and more popular here in the U.S. with regenerative farms, but these are the smaller farms, not your obviously your big feedlot groups. But being here in Tennessee, it's so amazing to watch the changes that are taking place, and where I can get my beef and stuff from. So I'm very fortunate here. Yeah.
I know we've got great options here in Washington too, but not every state has availability.
Right. Yeah. If pet parents could make one smart protein choice starting today, what would you recommend? I know what I always do, but
Bridget.
So I think about this in the sense because a lot of pet parents are still fearful of changing the diet, adding a topper. So I actually have 3 proteins I always suggest right off the bat. And it's chicken if there's not an allergy, a fish, or a lamb. Those are traditionally your 3 most easily digestible proteins. So it kind of gives you that safety and that security just to be able to top it. And I always suggest putting, of course, every dog is different, but as a suggestion, put like 1/4 a cup on top. Take 1/4 a cup of their kibble away. Start with that. You'll start seeing a difference, after a while, and then you can keep topping more or fully transition, whatever's most comfortable for you. But those are also going to be higher in biological value as well, those 3 proteins. And just as a reminder, biological value, it kind of measures how efficiently a protein can be digested and actually used by the body. So the higher the value, the more nutrients the dogs can actually absorb, and the less poop in your yard.
I love that they brought that up.
Right?
That's one of the things I always tell people, that's one of the first things you're going to notice is your dog poops a lot less.
And the smell is nowhere near as bad as a traditional dog.
Yeah.
So Kate, what do you recommend?
It's always fish. Some kind of fish. Get that fish on there, because so much of the food is so high in omega-6s. And so if you are getting those omega-3s in right off the bat, you're giving a big boost to their diet.
Yeah. And green vegetable is an easy add-on too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's full of all the different amino acids and omegas.
And the other superfood, we were talking about superfoods, eggs. I give eggs.
Most biological value. I love that.
Yeah. I give Blossom almost every day a raw egg. And again, I'm fortunate being in the country, and she gets farm fresh eggs, so they haven't been disinfected. I don't think in New Zealand they probably disinfect them, do they?
No, they're not even in the refrigerated.
Right. So I don't do that either. And what's interesting is I had a dozen from one of the local stores because I just didn't have any. And she wouldn't eat the membrane from those eggs.
Really?
Normally I pull the membrane off and give it to her.
Yeah.
But the ones that were disinfected, she wouldn't eat the membrane. So there had to have been residual
Yeah.
disinfectant in the membrane. She left it. And usually I pull that off and that she just sucks it right off my fingers, kind of thing.
Right.
She wouldn't eat it.
Well, in nature, they just know the right thing to do.
Yeah,
it's just leaving them so far outside of that. But I love that your dog was like,
yeah, something was off, and I recently read a study about how cats that won't drink water, they're finding it's because of the water source. They can detect poisons in the water.
Interesting.
And if you give them a bunch of different sources, they'll pick which one.
Yeah. Well, and that's I love this. It's totally off topic from us.
Yeah.
Water. We my dad's dog who lives with us, we could not cure his allergies for a long time. But we dialed it in pretty well with diet. We kind of had it all figured out. And he fell into a friend's pool and then he had open wounds. Like his hives split open. And we changed over to distilled water. And man, that was the last thing. So even though I think we have great water here, we don't.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, and I do tell people when they're like, I'm so frustrated. I've tried this, I've tried that. And I'm like, have you tried changing the water? Because
smart.
We have so much of it. And especially if you're talking about a food like ours, where you're rehydrating it, if you're rehydrating it with the water, and you've got bad water, that's a
huge factor. Yes. I have a well that I had tested and it's pristine.
Nice.
I need to retest it. It's been 2 years. So we drink straight from the well, but I wouldn't do city water.
Yeah. And I love to tell people that because it's just something that we take for granted and
you don't think of. The importance.
And that might be that missing piece in your dog or cat's journey.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that.
Water. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're coming up almost on an hour here. Where did that go? We do have a promo that you guys have offered 20% off products on our website, and that is good through 11/15. So a couple days after Summit. So the Feed Real Summit is October. Oh, that's actually a month after. Yeah. Sorry. Feed Real Summit is on October 11th and 12th. If you haven't gotten your tickets, K9 Naturals will be there, and I'm so excited that you're going to be there this year. We have the promo. We're going to put it up on the screen here, and we can share that.
20, I believe.
Yeah, it's FR20.
Yes,
there it is. Yep. Here, let me show it on here.
And like we talked about last time, also go into your independent. We've got great frequent buyers programs. We've got great promos going every month because we really want to support our independents.
Absolutely. And that neighborhood pet store day in the US is coming up on the 27th of this month. So
and we've got $10 off our small bag it's 2/3 off. So it's
nice
to try it. So
nice.
Neighborhood pet store day. Yeah.
That's awesome. So we are so excited for the summit this year. We have so many great vendors this year, so many great speakers and panelists, and it's just going to be an amazing opportunity. Any veterinarians that encourage them to go, any veterinary personnel, so that can be vets or vet techs, because it is race approved for them to get their CEs. And they can that's a good incentive for them to come. Yeah. I'm going to show the link to the summit here. And we're coming up on it in about 5 weeks. So excited. Excited to meet both of you in person. It's going to be great.
I know. I'm really excited. This is my first summit with you guys. So I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited to show Bridget San Diego.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Yes, I'm so excited to be there. I love that I have to go to San Diego every year.
In October, right?
In October, exactly.
Better than that.
Yes, it's going to be gorgeous. Although last year we had some really blustery weather. So let's hope that this year it's truly sunny California.
Yeah, knocking on my desk as we speak.
Yes, me too. So, well, great. Thank you so much for being here. I think this was a great conversation, along with being a lot of fun, and learned a lot. And we will see everybody again. More of these lives are going to be happening. Tomorrow we have one. We have a couple next week. So join us again live, and we will see you soon. Thank you.